Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Thanks again so much for tuning in. I am Simmer Chase. Today's going to be episode number 20 of our speed builds. This one's a historic one. So what I'm doing is I wanted to kind of go and recreate sort of the kit houses that we had sort of through history. So we're starting out with the first one in my historic series, the Magnolia. So the Magnolia house is really neat because it is sort of like a colonial style, pretty opulent. So what I did is I kind of created it as though you could still like recognize the outside, but then the inside I pretty much tore out. Back then they had a lot of compartmentalized rooms. So instead of doing that, I just made an open floor concept on the first floor. So we have 4 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, we have a pool, we have a whole mess of other things on and around the lot. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we work on this historic lot. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe in the links below. And stay proud. Go out and do something magical. And let's go ahead and dive in now. So the Sears kit house. I really love kit houses. They're really fun because no matter what, they're very similar. They were basically cut. A lot of them came from old historic forests. So you may want to check if you own one because you might actually be able to get it registered with the Department of Interior. It's a historic structure because it's actually really neat, but a lot of these forests are now ancient, extinct that these houses came from because what they did is they would just build like a railroad to like a forest, tear it down, they would cut it up then for whatever floor plan, and they would just load it up on a boxcar and ship it to you. And there'd be a guy that would come and knock on your door. Unfortunately, there really weren't lady or female sales agents really at the time, so there'd be a guy that'd knock on your door and say, "Hi, I'm selling Wardway houses, or I'm selling houses by Aladdin, or I'm selling houses by Sears, Roebuck & Co." And so from there, they're like, "Hey, here's these options," and you get to pick like a variety of options. You can modify the floor plan for an extra cost. And basically what happens is then they put the order into Sears or whichever company. There were several like Montgomery Ward, which is an old department store from way back when. Unfortunately, they filed bankruptcy back in the early 2000s. And so they're closed now. But basically there was Wardway, we had Aladdin, and so this was like your 1900s, early 1900s, late 1800s way of buying a prefab house, or like what we call a modular home now, or a prefab house that's kind of already made at a warehouse and it just kind of ships by truck bed, already assembled, ready to go. This wasn't that way. They would send you all your nails, the exact amount. They would send you all your wood, your lumber, maybe even a steel beam. Like my house has a steel beam in it. And so they would cut everything precisely to where you just pretty much needed to get out a hammer and nails and pop it in, and then just kind of assemble your house that way. And it may have happened over, several months. Your uncles may, or other family members, relatives may have came and helped, or there's a lot of investors at the time too that buy like 10 or 20 and hire some folks to go and assemble it on site, and for them to later on go and sell. And then even some cities actually purchase these houses, like in Cincinnati and a lot of places here in the Midwest. It was really fun, but you could actually go and kind of go in certain communities and neighborhoods and just kind of see how they formed. And I kind of, like back in the day, I really do look at these communities now and think about what it must have been like when these houses were all going in, and kind of that excitement and that really fun, amped up atmosphere of all this construction, all these people running around, building all these houses, all these foundations going in, plus a lot of lots that would have been empty in these neighborhoods of urban density now, where, we're kind of all crammed together with little yards. Like I have like 5,000 to 6,000 square feet of yard space with my house on top of it as well, and a garage. So, that's kind of what they did back then is, to kind of densify and then get people to move from the rural areas into the city, and then also to kind of promote family creation as well. If you've got multiple bedrooms, not a lot of time, then birth control really wasn't around either, in what we have now. So, you know, there'd be a lot of families of like 3, 4, 5 kids. I come from a family of 5. I'm the oldest, funny enough, but that's kind of the thing is, you know, they would just kind of, you know, assume that that was kind of the way back then. You know, your average family was probably a family of 4 plus the mom and dad, and now it's more like probably 2-ish, with the mom and dad maybe. So anyway, it's really fun because I really, really like the idea of being able to kind of pay respect to what we've kind of been given now. And so it's really fun because, you know, that's gone through like several generations now. Fortunately, my house is only like 4 or 5 owner maybe, but there are others that have just been owned like nonstop revolving door kind of thing. And so it's really fun because I'm like, oh wow, you know, I have all the original hardwoods and I have all the original trim and all that kind of stuff. So it really made me want to kind of replicate those houses here in The Sims that, you know, we may not see many of anymore because unfortunately, if they're not taken care of very well, or, you know, if they're have an unfortunate termite issue or, you know, things like that, anything that could really happen to a house in The Sims, you know, could very well happen in real life or just plain neglect. So there's just not a lot anymore. So I kind of want to make like a little library archive sort of thing of some of my most favorite and then sort of the favorite or most popular floor plans that I can actually replicate into The Sims as well and make pretty authentic. So I don't want to really deviate too much from the exterior facade of it because typically you've got like a historic preservation society kind of place that's, you know, kind of like, hey, we still want it to look the same on the outside. We don't really care what you do as much on the inside, as long as you can, like, you know, leave it as original as possible. But when it comes to the outside, it's pretty much got to be the same. So that's kind of what I want to do here and have that sort of philosophy with this build series. So here in the game, you're seeing kind of the beginnings of the house really come together and sort of that design. So this one had a carport sort of thing on the side that they call the sleeper porch. And so, you know, you would kind of have this portico section or maybe a terrace, you know, from the upstairs like I have here. Or you may even just have like a carport that doesn't even have any like actual balcony around it, but this plan did. So I thought that was a really fun idea. And so there are like 2 balconies. The sun porch also has a balcony. So I thought one would be really fun to kind of put off the master and make it more of like a private one. And give it some modern amenities, you know, like you got your hot tub and you got a little bar and that kind of stuff. But then the other side, it kind of kept it a little more like original to what it would have been, and, you know, just kind of gave them a little yoga area and just stuff that would be sort of fun to really do. And so now I'm actually coming here on the front of the plan and really trying to really emulate and get that finer detail of the exterior facade done. So I ended up stacking a lot of different windows, and I was kind of waffling on my ideas here and there a little bit too on how to really make it look the most authentic with the window options that we currently have. So, you know, I'm kind of going through and you know, removing windows, adding windows, that kind of thing. But as you've seen from the screenshot, you can on the thumbnail, you can actually see that it's coming together pretty well compared to what it actually is at the end. But I was looking closer and realized that these windows and the height from the ceiling, it's pretty much floor to ceiling windows for most of the house. And then also it's got this area of just tons of windows, you know, in the seating area. So I wanted to really make sure that that really kind of called to home on the original plan as well. So, and then also kind of the fireplaces, those are a big deal to the houses, and really the roof line, and then the overall facade appeal. So I really wanted to make sure that those were really good and solid clad as well. So you're kind of seeing me change that up a tad too. This one was really fun because I felt like in some of the rendering a little bit, it actually did have the palm trees as well. So I was thinking they're probably pitching this to more folks in like Florida or in the areas of California that were just being developed, and as well as Florida, because that's like the time where Florida was really starting to get in gear and develop some of the historic properties they have now. So Another thing I'm really like love being known for is like my landscaping in The Sims 4. So I really did kind of go all out on the landscaping, but I tried to keep it minimalist and more true to the design of the house on the left. And then on the right, I kind of went, you know, kind of crazy and more Simsified with it, so to speak, so that it just kind of did have some appeal to the gallery and, you know, to everybody in general. So, you know, we kind of have that option as well. And I really love this pond. It's one of my favorite. I barely get to use it because, you know, there's just never hardly any space in my yards because I generally will make a giant house or a big house. But now that, you know, I'm kind of focusing a little bit on actually just making sure that these are more authentic, true to the design of, you know, in this one, in this case, it was actually from 1916. So it's, you know, a 104-year-old plan. So I didn't really want to go too far away from it or from the concept of the rendering for it, and which would have been hand drawn as well. So just kind of coming through here, getting everything together. I did throw it into night mode for a little bit, a couple times here and there, just to make sure that our lighting looked really well too, because this felt more like an estate house too. And back in the day, it would have only been like $5,400 US dollars, believe it or not, to order this house. And then I assume like maybe a fraction of that, up to $1,000, to have it all built and finished. Because, you know, everything was just so cheap back in the day that it's just really funny to think about that it's like, oh, everything's so much more expensive now, of course. So now I'm actually coming through here and just chunking out the plan and kind of getting my windows all together too, because that was a little bit of a mess for me to try and figure out, like, oh yes, where do we want the kitchen? So in the real life plan, it was neat because the kitchen was actually in the back as well, but because the idea that I decided to just go open floor plan, that was fine. But for me, if it's like more of a closed off floor plan, then I would want to walk sort of into like a living room area and then have a kitchen like immediately behind that. I really don't like the idea of having the kitchen in the back of the house because it is kind of the heart of the home now, and not so much like the living room because people just don't have the time. You know, you're just going to kind of go in your own room or go do your own thing a little bit. So I don't really envision a lot of people, you know, kind of using their living rooms as much as they did back in the day. You know, you had this like giant parlor and a big dining room and then a tiny little kitchen that was just like wherever. Because, you know, a lot of times people had hired help too, you know, so they would, even after everything and all our social issues and everything changed, you know, people still had hired help, you know, in a lot of situations until, you know, after the Depression. And then that's kind of when it went, and, you know, people kind of had to be self-sufficient because you couldn't afford to have somebody come do the things that you could do anyway, you know, like cook or clean. And then sort of in the United States, it was kind of a pivot too of like more of like, you know, the housewife and homemaker kind of stuff. So that's when it was like, you know, kind of goofy for women a little bit, and they were kind of being pulled in different directions on what society expected out of them. So I really want to kind of, you know, make it more for the modern living, and that it doesn't really matter who you are because everybody deserves like a nice place to live with a phenomenal, exceptional like area to kind of do what you need to do. So it could be baking, it could be cooking, whatever you're doing. This kind of has it, which I really liked. When I first saw, I was just skimming through the plans online and I was like, yeah, this is a really cool family house, like estate even. So I just made sure to go really kind of hog wild a little bit with all of the different lighting solutions that I used in this house, because a lot of them I wanted to make feel more like original. Well, pretty much all of the lighting I wanted to make it feel as almost as though it was original. But when it came to the house, sort of the aesthetics of that, I kind of then morphed around those lighting packages that I did. And then I really wanted to make sure that it had a lot of offering for like just illusion, you know, and creating more of that open white space. So I tried something new and put them on top of the cabinets, which is something pretty modern. You know, it's almost giving you like that theater glow look that some people really like. So now we're doing a greenhouse, and in this house, I really just thought that it'd be cute and fun because it looked sort of like in the rendering that they might have been advertising one of their little sheds, because you could also buy a shed too, mail order as well, and have it delivered, again, via boxcar. Then they would have, you know, horse and buggied it, perhaps, or, you know, depending on when it was done, then they would have had, you know, our first generation of like semi trucks, which were just really big, sort of bulky, clunky trucks that probably, you know, burned lead fuel and all that kind of crazy. So now I'm just coming together with the bathroom, because I didn't want to put a bathroom on the first floor, because that was actually in the plan too. And that's kind of a unique thing, because like my bathroom and a lot of them didn't include one, because bathrooms were pretty new back then. So you maybe had one, or you might have got two if you were doing really good. And this plan actually had two, but I ended up cramming in a lot more, because I just made the plan like a little bit bigger, I think, than what it would have been in real life. Just to kind of accommodate the extra bedroom space, and then the bathrooms, because I do like to parody the number of bathrooms with the number of bedrooms, because who wants to like walk around and, you know, kind of be in your towel or whatever. So then I really wanted to kind of utilize the grand central staircase sort of idea, this really big staircase. I just felt like the house really needed it. And I know it's kind of off center, but I really wanted to do like a 3-banger right there. And I didn't want to make it a 4. Or I'm sorry, on the door I made it a 3, but then on the staircase I made it 2 dualies, so that they're just like really, really grand and opulent. Because I felt like that house needed it, and it was kind of tucked around the bathroom on the plan before, so it did have the same bathroom sort of like tucked in the middle of the plan like that, and then the stairwell would have like went around it basically, and I'm like, oh, I could do something cooler than that. So it ended up giving me a lot more room and space later on to be able to kind of nail some of the other stuff here on getting kind of space underneath there a little bit more, being able to use it and make it sort of a holiday area. Now that we're getting into holiday a little bit, I was like, I hardly ever use any of the holiday content, but I thought this would be a really good fun one. And now I'm just kind of getting together sort of the schemes a little bit on this level. And I really, really wanted to make sure, again, that it sort of had that authentic vibe and feel, more so than maybe what it would have had if it was actually like completely modernized and flipped now at this point. So I really kind of went really crazy with the all this various clutter and things like that too, because I was just like, oh no, this has to be more, you know, it definitely has to be more than what I usually do, because I just kind of really want to make sure that the series really has all of the really strong elements of the plans that I do. And so I think a lot of that is by adding in all of your clutter, that kind of stuff. So I'm just kind of bouncing around a little bit in the plan right now and getting all the clutter put in, getting sort of the different usefulnesses or uses out of the plans, because I wasn't really sure kind of what I wanted them to exactly do. At the beginning I was just kind of wanting to do, like, I knew what the sunroom was going to be. I wanted to have a lot of plants, and or the Florida room as it may be called. But, you know, then I was like, ooh, this would be really fun, because back in the day, like, a lot of times you'd go into, like, that room and just chitty chat and play cards. So I thought maybe, you know, if you're rich, like the people that probably have this house were at the time, then you'd probably have a pianist there, or a piano and that kind of thing. So I really wanted to make sure there was a good piano there and properly positioned. And then I thought, you know, like, now that we've got nifty knitting, I like really thought that like a cute little knitting nook would be really fun too, because maybe these are older rich people that have this. And so I'm just like, yes, let's go with something funky like that. And then that's like, I liked even making a lot of little flower arrangements and potted plant arrangements too. So you're seeing some of those kind of come together too a little bit, because I just wanted this to kind of really have that homey, almost grandma-esque feel a little bit, because I feel like that's really what this sort of design kind of caters to a little bit at this point now. You know, they may have originally built this house way back when, grew up through it, and now they're, you know, in their golden years. And then I really wanted to use this really big, giant, opulent lighting fixture, of course, as well. But then you've got to really be kind of careful with that too, because it's really funny, because it'll actually poke up through your roof, because it's really just kind of meant as a stage piece. So it's really funny to, you know, kind of use it and then forget that, because then all of a sudden you're like looking around and you're like, oh, it's hanging out. Oops, gotta fix that. And so this little seating area, because I just made several, I'm like, oh, I have so much extra space. So what do I want to put here? So I was like, oh yes, definitely chess in one area. And then I wanted to have like a TV in the other area. And I didn't want to cover the windows, because I feel like in this house too, like some of the design, like the best of the design here is really in the windows, you know, and kind of the amount of light and everything that come out. So I didn't want to put like couches and chairs and all that kind of, you know, covering it all. And then someday I hope they let us like delete the center rail, because it would be more authentic and realistic in a stairwell, especially grand stairwell, if there's not that really big divider in the middle, because in real life you don't see that. The people that need the divider either go to the left or the right, but not the center. Like I've never seen a grand staircase that has that giant centerpiece through it the whole way. Just kind of goofy. And then I really wanted to kind of, you know, just give it that really sturdy, tough, strong, what they call honor built feel. So I did use a lot of the columns and stuff on the inside, not too many, just enough around the staircase to make it really feel like it was supported by something, because in theory it's floating if you're not doing that, which isn't scientifically possible, as everybody knows. Obviously with gravity it would just come crashing down if it even stayed up there. So now I just kind of wanted to make this all kind of feel a little more realistic, so I'm just kind of popping in, you know, our weeds and our little overgrowth and stuff kind of around your post and that kind of thing, just to kind of give it that extra flair. And also another fun thing about this is that I really enjoyed was being able to use the cars and kind of having that car pad, because in the original drawing they actually have like the little car pad thing, but there's not really a car there, because they probably, I mean, it's 1916, so they probably didn't even really know what car, if any, to really draw in. So, if there was many that they even thought of back then, so there really wasn't a car. But there was like that bird fountain, or that, not bird fountain, but the bird bath thing was there, the plants were there, and then sort of like that little garage thing in the back, which I ended up, you know, just using for the, that greenhouse. So, you know, I just kind of really wanted to make sure that, again, it really kind of had that spirit and vibe of the original plan as much as I possibly could. But then it kind of created some design challenges on the inside, because, yeah, I mean, it is just kind of a rectangly square thing. But, you know, when I was looking at it, I was like, ooh, now how am I going to fit my bathrooms? Now, how am I going to not make this feel like it's a cave and that it's, like, tight? So that's how I kind of did those little bump outs on the interior for all the different bathrooms, that kind of stuff. Here's where that master area is coming together here for all of the master stuff, you know, and just kind of getting the whole porch and stuff together, so it feels more cohesive and flowy into that master space. And then I really love the Star Wars stuff too. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm using more and more of the Star Wars stuff, because it does have that old vibe, that really whimsical old charm that we just don't have in any of their lighting fixtures here in the game currently. So I really, really wanted to pop in those sort of, like, I've been using them a lot recently, and it's just crazy. I hope other people are too, because they're really fun. But just those like hanging, you know, the like pillar lighting for exterior that just has that sort of hanging light globe on it, but it's like the cylindrical one. I just love it. And so now we're just coming in, getting our bathrooms together. I wanted them to feel sort of new and fresh, and then maybe have like one that's more like authentic. And so that one's on the first floor, and then the ones up here I just kind of wanted to give funky vibes a little bit too, and just make it more like this one here, styled kind of like the original concept as well of what it could have been. And same with this little tiny bathroom here too. But then a couple of the other ones I just kind of wanted to be a little more modern too. So it's like maybe these existed before and then maybe they added some later. So it's all just about kind of creating that little bit of narrative too, I think, about it. So more bathroom stuff. It's just, I really, really enjoy doing the design. Like once I get the actual house kind of shelled out and then figuring that out, I feel like that's some of the hardest parts, is trying to figure out where everything's gonna fit. But then once you do, then I think it's fun to decorate at that point. But then it's kind of like a dread to decorate at some points if you're like, you know, kind of like, ooh, manic a little bit, and you're like, you know, building all these squares and putting all these rooms together and stuff, and then you go to decorate and you're like, how many bedrooms did I make? Or like, how many bathrooms do I need? Or it's like, or you could create like almost like a design challenge for yourself, because you're like, only have like a little bit of tiny square space, and you're like, oh, and I have to fit a toilet, a sink, and a tub, or a shower. Okay. So sometimes, you know, that'll happen. And like this actually happened with me for the fitness stuff, because I did want to have a little bit of fitness equipment as well. And so that's how I ended up, you know, kind of coming into that little chunk there. And I really wanted laundry and that kind of stuff. So then I realized that I could probably just get all that along that way and then be fine. And it kind of, I think it really worked out well. And so now I'm just kind of coming together with the last of the bedroom stuff. So I kind of just set my design a little bit. One was like lodgy, sort of grandma-y, you know, just kind of like that historic charm and vibe a little bit. And then I wanted this one to feel really top shelf, almost like Queen Victorian-esque, you know, like real fancy and bougie, and then have like that outdoor patio / terrace to be able to go out there and like do things as well. And just kind of have a really fun sort of crazy design, you know, that's just like so over the top and just almost like ridiculous because it's so over the top. So I thought that kind of putting the rug around and like all the gold trim around the closet area and that kind of stuff is just funny. So alrighty, now I'm just coming through getting the last of sort of the design elements put together. And I wanted a yellow, like I tend not to use the yellow that much, but I thought that making a really funky, like mixed, what I call mixed modern, which is like, you know, the stuff from the old modern day of 1910s in this case, the 1916, and mixing that style and design with the current modern trends. So it, again, makes modern. It's modern of then and modern from now. So we've got this one. I almost like was inspired a little bit by like Colonel Mustard or something like that. You know, I just felt like, well, the Colonel sort of thing in here. So it's fun to really be able to sort of create that room, but then also have that space, because that's another thing is like these bedrooms, some of them are bigger than others, so it's kind of nice to be able to spread out a little bit more and do more than I generally would. And then it's just kind of like the decorating and all the decor stuff, because there's a lot. And so it took me a moment to like kind of get through on all that. And then on this house too, I really liked it because I used like the jars, that kind of stuff, because I wanted that to feel sort of like the homemaker room, you know, or like the person that's actually playing with the garden and doing the candle making and all that kind of stuff has that bedroom. Just, you know, more whimsy and like fun and different. So I wanted to add a little pop of color to that bedroom too, because it was so like bright and white and clean looking like I wanted. Because back then when the Spanish flu hit, everybody was just kind of obsessing over like cleanliness even more than we are now, like to the point of where it really changed the way the architecture really worked. between that and the plague beforehand. Because people just wanted like really lofty rooms because they felt like the virus would just like float up and away and out of your house. So you have big windows, lots of windows, no mirrors. You know, they were afraid of that. They were absolutely afraid of mirrors. Like, you would not have a mirror unless you were like really had to have one, but it wasn't really a decor item or anything like that until like later on, because people like were afraid of them capturing their soul, you know, unfortunately, as it seems to. So, you know, they're like, I don't want a mirror, and I don't want photography either, so I can use photos and it's like, no, now we're just totally different. I can't even imagine if you're like somebody back then, like coming to now and being like, oh my gosh, everybody loves taking photos of themselves, and they're smiling, and they have teeth. Whoa! So I'm just like, this is just far out. Kind of in putting your mindset into that idea, you know, kind of what it would have been back then. So now we're just kind of coming through, looking at everything here, and in a moment we're gonna pan around and look at everything as it is. I did a couple more tweaks once I got to looking. Like for instance, I was like, oh, this is protruding out of the ceiling. So I had to just kind of, you know, pop that up a tad, and then we're good to go there. So here's our spin and kind of the way it looks as of now, and you guys can go get it on the gallery. I've put the link below, so you guys can definitely download this if you want and make it your own. I look forward to having fellow simmers take my designs and kind of make them their own too. It's so much fun, and I just want to make sure that this looks, you know, authentic, and that you guys can kind of have that brief little history lesson and be able to kind of check out the way that I created and sort of recreated this design in The Sims, and to just kind of give other people the option to use it, maybe appreciate it if anything. And that's what I'm hoping to do in real life too. It's great to be able to have the opportunity to really bring up and bring back all of that historic charming character that many of us never got to see here, of course. So thanks again so much for tuning in, and I'm grateful for your time. I hope you guys have a great day. And stay proud. Go out and do something magical. And thanks again so much for tuning in.